Hey, what's going on, guys? FlynnMasters coming at you with another video, and today I'll be ranking every chef of the just finished Head Chef's Only season of Hell's Kitchen. And yeah, this should obviously be pretty interesting as I'm doing this video literally a day after the finale. And of course, a lot of these chefs join me for the podcast, to which I'm going to try not to be biased about, but I'm sure subconsciously there might be a little bit here and there. But yeah, with all that said, let's get right on into it with my least favorite chef. And honestly, this person isn't hated by me or anything, nor is really any chef this season for that matter. Just a lot of kind of bland characters, with the most bland and forgettable of them all being Corbin. And like, who is Corbin, you know? I mean, he had that Statue of Liberty comparison, you know, with being super tall. And I guess I felt a little bad for him going home despite the 2 evacuations earlier that day. And like, his elimination did cap off a pretty iconic episode. But like, I literally can't even remember what his voice sounds like, you know? Much less of anything note he did. So yeah, nothing against Corbin or anything, just a very nothing character. At number 17 is the first boot of the season, and that is Amber. And I can absolutely see the argument for her being below Corbin, as I know a lot of people didn't like her trying to save herself at the elimination ceremony when she told Ramsay that Magali nominated herself. I personally didn't have a problem with that whatsoever, and honestly I think that was a smart thing to do, and was surprised she received so much backlash for it. So, I mean, I guess kind of a sympathy ranking here, and not only that, but she is a contender for top 5 first boot when it comes to overall talent. So to me, those little things are just enough to put her above Corbin. At number 16 is a chef I hate to put this low, but I do have Michael. And again, this is where maybe I'm a bit biased as he was kind enough to join me for a podcast. But similar to Corbin, just frankly nothing to note here, other than his elimination, to which I truly did feel bad for him, getting eliminated for not looking Ramsay in the eye. Obviously a bizarre occurrence and something I could see happening to myself, and I don't think I'm alone in that. So a fine enough guy who I do have a bit of sympathy for, but just not around long enough for him to be much higher than 16. At number 15 is the first of the 2 chefs who got injured and subsequently left before the second service, with number 15 being Uri. And yeah, Uri had such an interesting edit as they were making him seem like the villain of the season early on, only for him to leave the competition in episode 3. Like, you think they would have gave him a bit more of a heroic edit. So yeah, obviously stinks we lost Uri so early on, as villain or not, he for sure seemed like a very big character. And honestly, if it wasn't for a frankly unfair reason, I would have him over the other injured chef for, you know, seeming like a bigger character. But regardless, Uri is here at number 15. At number 14 is that other injured chef in Shant. And yeah, I only have Shant above Uri due to picking him for my draft team. And I would have been so interested to see how far he could have gone, as despite damn near being the first boot, he still had so much potential, and a prototypical chef who usually wins a season of Hell's Kitchen. So again, kind of unfair I do admit, but I do have Shant just above Uri. At number 13 is someone who, once again, I hate to put this low, but objectively speaking, Brittany just doesn't do much this season. Again, an awesome and lovely person, but the most I got from her this season was her being from Alaska and her sending her dish she usually served on all her first dates. And, you know, was a decent chef who you could even argue should have been given a second chance compared to Anne-Marie at that point, but just really not much there for me despite her decent run, which is why she lands here at number 13. At number 12 is someone who might be low to a lot of people, but I do have Megan. And a lot of people were really upset at her elimination. I personally wasn't too upset by it and can see the argument for why she did indeed go home. But yeah, definitely one of the more talented early boots in the show's history for sure. So she's got that going for her. But again, just kind of a bland personality, to which I honestly do respect because, you know, again, as someone who invited her live with Anne-Marie of all people, it was so funny to see the difference between the two. And, you know, Megan simply doesn't BS who she is, to which I do respect. So, you know, I respect Megan and would love to see her get a second chance one day. But as far as this season, I'm not that high on her compared to others. And I can't put her much higher than number 12. At number 11 is someone very similar to Brittany, eliminated right before her, actually, and Lulu. And, you know, I will say, obviously, Lulu was a bit more notable this season than Brittany, and arguably even compared to some of the chefs above her, as she, of course, switched to the blue team very early on, you know, seeming like a big-time favorite. And it's always interesting to see how those early switches go. And in Lulu's case, not very well, as it was the beginning of her downfall. And interestingly enough, it did not seem like the blue team got along with her. You know, I wish we saw more of that. And of course, her standing at the freaking door thinking they would open was absolutely hilarious during her elimination. So yeah, she's a notable character this season, but personality-wise, again, just kind of there. Which is why the middle tier here at 11, I think, is a good spot for her. At number 10 is someone who I think got a lot of unnecessary hate, and that is the Black Jacket Lounge boot in Amanda. And I'll be frank, I was with just about everyone, I'm sure, and hoping the other 5 would get a black jacket over her. But it seemed people generally did not like Amanda, which I found strange. And, going back to Megan, I know a lot of people think Amanda should have at least gone up for elimination that night, and other times as well. And, people think she always seemed to skate by. For me, I think she deserved her sixth place finish. Again, you could argue some of the boots before her were a bit more talented overall, but I think she overall deserved it. The big thing for me is like she was just so invisible all season, other than her random spikes of content here and there, which I just found so odd for a Black Jacket Lounge boot. So again, I don't love her, but don't hate her by any means. And due to her overall good run this season, to which I do believe was mostly justified, I have Amanda essentially in the middle of my rankings, here at number 10. At number 9 is the definition of a solid chef and TV personality, with that being Joe. And Joe fought damn hard this season despite him being away from his family. His talk with Egypt was, of course, one of the more emotional moments of the season. He also had his beef with Uri early on, which again is really odd in retrospect. And you could argue he absolutely should have been given a second chance to at least compete in the Black Jacket Lounge Challenge, as I know a lot of people were beginning to be really high on Joe at that point. So just a good overall addition to the season, and I just simply like the 8 chefs above him a bit more for one reason or another. At number 8 is who many people could consider the villain of the season, with that being Brandon. And again, this was a constant talking point on the podcast all season for me, and why the show was making Brandon, who was such a chill dude, look like such a douchebag. I mean, it wasn't over the top or anything, but still. And instead of making him look like a confident chef, they made him look so freaking arrogant and cocky. He always had the most to say about Egypt, which, say what you will about that, but, that went nowhere. And again, all this bad edit for a pretty unsatisfying conclusion, at least for me, because again, it would have made sense had they, had the editors made the audience dislike him, had he been sent home over Egypt, or, my prediction at the time, been that overconfident Final 2 loser. But for this bad of an edit to lead to an out of nowhere meltdown during the Black Jackets, I mean, I guess for people who didn't like him, it was satisfying, but it just didn't do much for me. So again, this is more so a respect ranking for Brandon, as he certainly wasn't the most interesting personality in the world, but he was a damn good cook who believed in himself, and that somehow screamed out a good villain for the editors. Just very odd, but hey, I see through it and enjoyed Brandon for what he brought to the season. At number 7 is someone who I originally was going to have a lot higher, despite this person being another controversial chef who could be placed lower for a lot of people. But there is one thing that really soured me on them, and that is Wit. And yeah, straight up, Wit was going to be my top 5 actually before the Final 4 episode. As well, yeah, she had shown signs of a bad attitude beforehand. To me, that's just how she is as a person. And again, it's Hell's Kitchen. They can edit her badly. Like, I get it. So I'm not going to be too hard on her. Especially when she's just a flat out badass chef and person. But yeah, as you guys know, disrespecting Ramsay is a huge no-no for me. And I know she wasn't over the top mean or anything, but I don't care how pissed you are, to not say a word to Ramsay on your way out after he said all those kind words about you, or in general just ignore the other 3 chefs you had grown so close to, just an awful look. So while I don't hate Whit by any means, and again plan to have her in my top 5, that disrespect to Ramsay and the final 3 in general drops her down to number 7. At number 6 is the earliest boots left on the board, with that being Magali. And again, this is where my bias might come into play, or just simply doing this without rewatching the season, as Magali was just a complete spark plug on my podcast, and on the show for that matter, that typical always positive type chef that I love so much, especially on a show like Hell's Kitchen. Now again, obviously she wasn't really booed, to which, to be fair, her elimination was one of the more interesting moments of the season. But as you can see, this cast is simply not the most exciting. And so while maybe I am a bit biased, for now, I do think Magali's smoky personality justifies her spot in my top 6. And speaking of early boots, at number 5 is arguably the greatest earliest boot in Hell's Kitchen history, with that being Anthony. And yeah, the dude dominated all season, got put in the Cook for Your Life challenge, made a massive mistake, and got eliminated for it. Literally no reason why he couldn't have been a Black Jacket, or flat out won this season had it not been for that. And there's a reason why he's the first chef to ever keep his blue jacket. And not only that, but he was such a sweet guy as well, with an awesome backstory. Yet at the same time, I know firsthand he's that chill bro type of figure as well. So while it stinks he didn't last longer, his shocking early elimination will always be one of the most iconic things about this season, if not flat out one of the most shocking eliminations in Hell's Kitchen history. On to the top 4 now, and at number 4 is Anne-Marie. And again, another possible controversial placement here, as I know some people don't like Anne-Marie. But similar to Magali and every chef like those two for that matter, I just adore the fact that they can stay so spunky, and in Anne-Marie's case, her very expressive self despite being in Hell's Kitchen. Not only that, but she fought her ass off to make it as far as she did, which again, I know some people might not like and think she should have been gone earlier. But to me, I really love Anne-Marie, and she simply stands out in the best of ways compared to most of this cast. which is why she's in my top 4. On to the top 3, and these top 3 are indeed the final 3, with number 3 being the runner-up of the season in Hannah. And again, as has been the case throughout the video, maybe a bit biased here, due to Hannah being in a lot of my recaps, and in general being a catalyst to get me a bunch of cast on. But yeah, like objectively, she's not the most interesting personality in the world, which again is like a lot of the cast. And the reason why she is this high is, she truly is that Paula and Sammy type of late game figure, and where she doesn't need to be over the top or anything. She just needs to put her head down and get to work and be a damn good chef. And she is that and then some. And especially since, even more so since she got off to a somewhat shaky start, for her to turn it on like she did and essentially dominate the red team during the second half of the season was incredible. So yeah, while maybe not the most interesting runner-up ever, just a flat-out great endgame cook that Hell's Kitchen always needs. At number 2 is arguably the biggest character of the season, with that being Egypt. And yeah, pretty much the first half of the season revolved around Egypt and having to deal with the blue team doubters, which to be fair, I did kind of feel was a bit over-edited, but nonetheless, he was obviously a naturally likable and charismatic guy. And he even caused Ramsay to open up to him in one of the most emotional moments ever, to which afterwards he would go on to be a beast the rest of the season. It's such an interesting run for him, to being a favorite early on, to wanting to quit after all he was going through, to dominating the most of the late game, to nailing a black jacket, to in the end be the third placer. All this while being such a fun character. When you factor all this together, there's a reason why Egypt is such a massive character this season, and he's my second favorite chef overall. But at number 1 is the winner of the season in Kyle. And I've said a bunch of times already, but I cannot believe that someone like Kyle actually won Hell's Kitchen. In my opinion, the best all-around character to ever win the show. And it's not just his bubbly personality either. It's also just his general funny moments he gave us, like him failing over and over again at that one make a shot challenge. Him and Judy Gold were absolutely hilarious. They for real need their own show. Him always pamper himself on rewards. It's all so great. And yet the same guy, who many people weren't even expecting to get a black jacket, especially after he almost went home over Lulu, flipped an absolute switch and dominated the second half of the season to win the whole freaking thing. Again, I just cannot believe that a character like Kyle is a Hell's Kitchen winner, but he did, and I am so thankful for that. And he is easily my favorite character of Head Chefs Only. So there you have it, guys, my ranking of each chef from Hell's Kitchen Head Chefs Only. Let me know what your list would be in the comments below, along with what you generally think of this cast. And be sure to hit the subscribe and like button to support the channel. And with all that said, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.